Is today your birthday?
Sweetheart, we shouldn't bother people.
Can we sing with you?
The morning mist clung to the windows of Riverside Cafe in downtown Portland, creating a soft curtain between the warm interior and the bustling street outside. Coffee cups clinked against saucers, and the gentle hum of conversation filled the space like a familiar lullaby. Victoria Greenberg sat at her usual table by the large window, her blonde hair falling loose below her shoulders. The wheelchair she'd grown accustomed to over the past 18 months was positioned perfectly to catch the filtered sunlight. Before her sat a chocolate cake, decorated with delicate white icing, with candles, just another year marked in solitude. Before diving in, let me know where you are tuning in from today. I'd love to know how far this story travels. Now let's get back to the story. Today was her 29th birthday, and like so many days since the skiing accident that changed everything, she found herself alone. Her father, Richard Greenberg, was somewhere in Tokyo, closing another multi-billion-dollar deal. Her mother had passed 3 years ago from complications during surgery, leaving behind only memories and an empty penthouse that echoed with what used to be. Victoria was watching the candle light. She didn't expect company, hadn't for months. But sometimes the universe has other plans. "Excuse me, miss. Is today your birthday?" Victoria looked up to find a little black girl standing beside her table, her dark eyes bright with curiosity. She couldn't have been more than 5. In her small hands, she clutched a fluffy stuffed animal. "Zoe, sweetheart, we shouldn't bother people," came a gentle voice from behind her. A black man approached, tall, with kind eyes and the sort of presence that immediately put others at ease. His work shirt suggested he'd come from work, but his manner was refined, careful. He rested a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. "But Daddy Marcus, she's all by herself on her birthday," Zoe insisted, looking between her father and Victoria with the earnest concern only children possess. Nobody should be alone on their birthday. Victoria felt something shift in her chest. Not quite hope, but something warmer than the numbness she'd grown used to. She managed a small smile. "Please," she said softly, I'd like the company." Marcus hesitated, studying Victoria's face for any sign of discomfort. Finding none, he nodded to Zoe, who immediately began pulling an empty chair closer to the table. "Can we sing to you?" Zoe asked, settling into her seat with the excitement of someone about to share the greatest gift imaginable. And so, they did. Zoe's voice rang out clear and joyful, while Marcus provided a steady, warm harmony. Other patrons turned to watch, smiling at the impromptu celebration. Victoria found herself overwhelmed by the simple beauty of it all. Strangers choosing kindness, a child's uninhibited love, the feeling of being seen after months of invisibility. When the song ended, tears tracked down Victoria's cheeks. Not tears of sadness, though those had been her constant companions, but tears of gratitude for this unexpected moment of grace. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "That was the most beautiful gift I could have received." Zoe beamed, reaching across to pat Victoria's hand with the gentle seriousness of an old soul. "Everybody deserves birthday songs," she declared. "It's like giving somebody a hug with music." Marcus smiled at his daughter's wisdom, then looked at Victoria with understanding in his eyes. No questions about the wheelchair, no awkward sympathy, just acceptance and warmth. They spent the next hour together, sharing cake and conversation. Victoria learned that Marcus was a project manager for a sustainable construction company, raising Zoe alone since her mother died in a car accident 2 years prior. Zoe learned that Victoria liked to paint, though she struggled with it now, and that her favorite color was the same shade of blue as the sky after a storm. When it was time to leave, Zoe hugged Victoria goodbye, whispering, "Will we see you again?" "I hope so," Victoria replied, and for the first time in months, she meant it. The following Wednesday found Victoria in an unexpected place. the community center 3 blocks from her apartment building. The Art for Healing class met twice a week, designed for people recovering from trauma, illness, or loss. Victoria had signed up on impulse after her encounter with Marcus and Zoe, driven by a desire to reclaim some part of herself she thought was lost forever. Her right hand, once steady and sure, now trembled as she tried to guide the brush across the canvas. Her left hand was learning to compensate, but progress was slow and often frustrating. Today's assignment was simple: paint something that brought joy. Victoria stared at the blank canvas, memories of her former life as an art curator flooding back. She'd once organized exhibitions for internationally renowned artists, her eye for beauty and composition nearly flawless. Now she struggled to draw a straight line. The bell above the classroom door chimed, and Victoria turned to see a familiar face peering through the glass. Zoe waved enthusiastically, pressing her palm against the window. Behind her, Marcus offered an apologetic smile, gesturing toward the children's art class in the adjacent room. "We meet again," he said, approaching Victoria's easel. "Mind if I sit for a moment while Zoe gets settled?" Victoria nodded, grateful for the distraction. Marcus settled into a nearby chair, his presence both calming and energizing in a way she couldn't quite explain. "What are you working on?" he asked, nodding toward her canvas. Victoria laughed, a sound that surprised them both. "Currently, abstract frustration with hints of self-doubt." "Sounds honest," Marcus replied. "That's more than most people manage in their art." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching as other students worked on their pieces. The room hummed with quiet concentration and the occasional murmur of encouragement from the instructor. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said finally. "And please, feel free to tell me it's none of my business." Marcus nodded encouragingly. "How do you do it? Raise Zoe alone, maintain that sense of joy she has? After losing her mother, I mean." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. "I suppose I realized that Zoe needed to see that life could still be beautiful, even after terrible things happen. If I fell apart completely, what would that teach her about resilience? About hope?" He paused, watching his daughter through the classroom window as she enthusiastically painted what appeared to be a butterfly the size of a small airplane. "Don't get me wrong," he continued. "There were days, weeks where I barely held it together. But Zoe has this way of finding magic in the smallest things. A butterfly landing on her hand, the way shadows dance on walls, the sound rain makes on the roof. She taught me to see the world through wonder again." Victoria felt something deep inside her chest begin to unknot. "I used to see beauty everywhere," she admitted. "It was my job, my passion. Now everything just feels gray." "Maybe," Marcus said gently, "you're just looking for the wrong kind of beauty. The perfectly curated, museum-quality kind. But what if beauty is Messier now? What if it's in the attempt, in the courage to try, in the willingness to start again?" That evening, Victoria worked on her painting until well past midnight. She painted a storm, dark clouds, and driving rain, but in one corner, barely visible unless you look closely, was the faintest suggestion of light breaking through. Over the following weeks, Victoria found herself looking forward to Wednesdays with an anticipation she hadn't felt in years. Her art slowly improved, not in technical skill, but in honesty and emotional depth. More importantly, her friendship with Marcus and Zoe deepened. They began meeting for coffee after art classes, sometimes walking through Lawlhurst Park, where Zoe would collect leaves and interesting rocks while the adults talked. Marcus shared stories of his work renovating old buildings into affordable housing, his passion for creating homes for families who needed them most. Victoria told them about her previous life curating exhibitions and slowly, carefully about the accident that changed everything. She'd been skiing alone in Colorado, celebrating the successful launch of a major exhibition. The slopes were challenging, but not beyond her abilities, or so she thought. One moment of inattention, one patch of ice, and her life divided permanently into before and after. I was always so controlled, she told Marcus one afternoon as Zoe played on the nearby swings. Every detail planned, every risk calculated. The irony is that the one time I decided to be spontaneous, to celebrate alone on a difficult slope, was when everything went wrong. Marcus listened without offering platitudes or false reassurances. Do you regret the spontaneity or just that particular choice? Victoria considered this. I think I regret being alone. Not the adventure itself, but having no one to share it with, good or bad. And now? Victoria watched Zoe pumping her legs on the swing. Her laughter carried on the wind. Now I'm learning that being alone and being lonely are different things. Their friendship wasn't without challenges. There were the curious stares when they were out together. A white woman in a wheelchair, a black man, and his daughter, clearly comfortable in each other's company. Victoria noticed how some people's expressions shifted when they saw them together, assumptions forming and dissolving in real time. But there were also moments of pure joy. Like when Zoe decided Victoria needed to learn how to braid hair, resulting in a lopsided but enthusiastic attempt that left them all laughing. Or when Marcus taught Victoria some basic techniques for adaptive painting, having researched methods during his lunch breaks. One rainy Thursday evening, Victoria received an unexpected visitor. She'd been reading in her apartment when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Marcus standing in the hallway, soaked from the rain. Is everything okay? She asked, opening the door quickly. I'm sorry to bother you, he said, rain dripping from his jacket. Zoe's at her grandmother's tonight, and I was walking by after work, and I saw your light on, and... He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. The truth is, I wanted to check on you. You seemed a little off yesterday. Victoria felt warmth spread through her chest. Yesterday had been difficult. The anniversary of her accident, a day she tried to navigate alone. She hadn't mentioned it to anyone, but somehow Marcus had to struggle. Come in, she said, stepping back. You're freezing. She made tea while Marcus dried off, and they settled in her living room. The space was beautiful but impersonal. Expensive furniture chosen by an interior designer. Artwork that was technically excellent but emotionally distant. Can I ask you something? Marcus said, accepting the warm mug gratefully. Of course. This place is gorgeous, but it doesn't feel like you. Where's your art? The pieces you've created or the ones that really speak to you? Victoria looked around with fresh eyes. He was right. The apartment was more like a hotel suite than a home. I suppose I never thought I deserved to display my own work. And after the accident, I put away most of the pieces that mattered to me. Too many memories. Maybe it's time to bring some of them back out, Marcus suggested gently. Not all at once, but gradually. Create a space that feels like Victoria, not like someone Victoria thinks she should be. That night, after Marcus left, Victoria went to her storage closet and pulled out a box she hadn't opened in over a year. Inside were paintings she'd collected over the years. Not expensive pieces, but ones that had moved her. A watercolor of children playing in the rain, purchased from a street artist in Paris. An abstract piece in blues and greens that reminded her of the ocean. A small portrait of an elderly woman's hands, weathered and beautiful. She spent the next hour hanging them around her apartment, and for the first time since moving in, the space began to feel like home. The crisis came on a Tuesday morning, splashed across the front page of Portland's largest newspaper. Greenberg heiress. Hidden disability or publicity stunt? The article was cruel and invasive, featuring a blurry photograph of Victoria at the cafe with Marcus and Zoe, speculation about her condition, and barely veiled criticism of her father's business practices. Victoria's phone buzzed incessantly with calls from reporters, old acquaintances, and well-meaning friends. Her apartment building's doorman was fielding constant requests for access. The world she'd been slowly re-entering suddenly felt hostile and invasive. She turned off her phone, unplugged her landline, and closed her curtains. For 3 days, she retreated into herself, ordering groceries online and avoiding any contact with the outside world. On Thursday evening, there was a soft knock at her door. Through the peephole, she saw Zoe holding a small bouquet of wildflowers, with Marcus standing protectively behind her. Victoria opened the door, and Zoe immediately wrapped her arms around her waist. "We brought you flowers," Zoe announced. "Daddy said you might be sad about the mean newspaper." Marcus met Victoria's eyes over his daughter's head. "We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. We just wanted you to know we're here." Victoria felt tears threaten. "I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. That picture of us together, people are going to make assumptions, say things. Let them," Marcus said firmly. "Anyone who knows us knows the truth. And anyone who doesn't know us doesn't matter." They spent the evening playing board games and watching movies. Zoe curled between the adults on the couch like she belonged there. When it was time for them to leave, Victoria felt the familiar pang of loneliness approaching. "Marcus," she said as he gathered their coats, Would you consider staying tonight? Just so I'm not alone with all of this." He studied her face, understanding what she was asking and what she wasn't. Of course, Zoe can take the guest room. She'd love that big bed. That night, Victoria slept better than she had in days, comforted by the sound of quiet breathing in nearby rooms, by the knowledge that she wasn't facing her troubles alone. In the morning, Marcus made breakfast while Zoe regaled Victoria with stories about her imaginary pet dragon. The normalcy of it, the domestic ease, the laughter over pancakes, the way Zoe insisted on braiding Victoria's hair before school, felt like a balm to her wounded spirit. "I have a confession," Victoria said as Marcus prepared to leave for work. "I haven't felt this much like myself in years. Thank you for seeing me. Not the headlines, or the assumptions, or the chair. Just me." Marcus kissed her forehead gently, a gesture so tender it made her breath catch. "That's all I've ever seen," he said. "Just Victoria. And Victoria is pretty wonderful." The weeks that followed brought unexpected developments. Victoria's father, Richard, flew in from Hong Kong unannounced, arriving at her apartment with the air of a man accustomed to fixing problems through force of will. "This situation needs to be managed," he announced without preamble, settling into her living room like a general planning a campaign. "I've hired a public relations firm to control the narrative. We'll present you as an inspiration, a symbol of overcoming adversity." Victoria felt her stomach clench. "Dad, I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to live my life." "Your life is public whether you like it or not. You're a Greenberg. There are expectations, responsibilities. What about my happiness?" Victoria asked. "What about the connections I'm building, the relationships that matter to me?" Richard's expression hardened. "You mean that construction worker and his daughter?" "Victoria, be realistic. These people see an opportunity. A wealthy, vulnerable woman who—" "Stop." Victoria's voice was sharp, surprising them both. "Marcus and Zoe are the best things that have happened to me in years. They don't see dollar signs when they look at me. They see a friend." "You're being naive, and you're being cruel." Victoria moved her wheelchair to face him directly. "For the first time since the accident, I feel like I'm living instead of just existing. If you can't see the value in that, then maybe you don't know me as well as you think you do." Richard left that evening with their relationship strained but not broken. Victoria knew he was trying to protect her in the only way he knew how, but she also knew she couldn't live her life according to his fears. The community center was decorated with paper snowflakes and twinkling lights, transformed for their winter art showcase. Students' paintings lined the walls, each piece telling a story of struggle, healing, and hope. Victoria's contribution hung near the center of the display, a landscape that seemed to shift depending on the viewer's perspective. In some lights, it appeared to be a storm-ravaged mountain. In others, it revealed itself as a vista of incredible beauty, with light streaming through clouds and colors that seemed to pulse with life. She titled it simply, After. Marcus found her standing before the painting, Zoe's hand firmly grasped in hers. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "Hopeful." Victoria smiled. "It's honest." That's all I was going for. The evening was filled with quiet celebration. Families admiring their loved ones' work. Stories shared over coffee and cookies. The kind of community connection Victoria had never experienced in her previous life of gallery openings and champagne receptions. As the evening wound down and people began to leave, Marcus approached Victoria with something like nervousness in his expression. "Can we talk?" he asked, privately. They found a quiet corner while Zoe helped stack chairs with some other children. Marcus seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "These past few months," he began, "getting to know you, watching you find your strength again, sharing our lives with you, it's been incredible. More than incredible." Victoria felt her heart begin to race. "But I need to be honest about something. I'm falling in love with you, Victoria. I've been for weeks now. And I know our situations are complicated. I know there are challenges we'd face, but I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel." Victoria reached for his hand, her own trembling slightly. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Of hoping too much, of believing this is real, of trusting that you see me as more than a project or a broken thing to fix." "You're not broken," Marcus said firmly. "Changed, yes. Challenged, absolutely, but not broken. You're one of the strongest, most genuine people I've ever met. And what I feel for you has nothing to do with wanting to fix you and everything to do with admiring who you are." Victoria looked across the room to where Zoe was giggling with friends, then back to Marcus's face, open and honest and full of hope. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. "Both of you. You've given me back my life." When they kissed, it was gentle and sure, a promise of beginning rather than an end to loneliness. 6 months later, the same community center was decorated for a different celebration. Zoe's kindergarten graduation filled the room with proud families and excited children in tiny caps and gowns. Victoria sat in the front row, her camera ready to capture every moment of Zoe's big day. Marcus sat beside her, handsome in a blue shirt that Zoe had insisted matched Victoria's dress perfectly. The ceremony was sweet and chaotic, full of forgotten lines and enthusiastic waving to parents. When Zoe's name was called, she walked across the small stage with dignity beyond her years, accepted her certificate, and then did something entirely unexpected. She walked to the microphone. "Can I say something?" she asked the principal, who nodded with an indulgent smile. "I want to thank my daddy and my mommy Victoria for teaching me that families come in all different ways, and love is what makes them real." The audience erupted in gentle applause, and Victoria felt tears stream down her cheeks. Not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming joy and gratitude for this little girl who had taught her that healing comes through connection, that love expands to fill whatever space you give it. After the ceremony, as they walked to the car with Zoe skipping between them, Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Saw the photos online from Zoe's graduation. You look happy, truly happy. I'm proud of you, sweetheart, for all of it." That evening, as they sat on the porch of Marcus's small house, Victoria had moved in 3 months prior, watching Zoe chase fireflies in the yard. Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She hadn't gotten back everything she'd lost in the accident. Her mobility was still limited, her fine motor control still imperfect. But she'd gained something perhaps more valuable, a family born not of obligation or expectation, but of choice and love and the daily decision to show up for each other. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, following her gaze to where Zoe was attempting to catch fireflies in a mason jar. "I was thinking about stories," Victoria said. How I used to think mine was over after the accident. Endings and beginnings, and how sometimes they're the same thing. Marcus took her hand, rings catching the light from the porch lamp. They've been married for 2 months now. A small ceremony in this same backyard, with just their closest friends and family present. Zoe had been the flower girl and the ring bearer, taking both jobs very seriously. "And what kind of story is this?" he asked. Victoria watched Zoe's delighted face as a firefly landed on her palm instead of flying into her jar, and listened to her excited call for them to come see. "The continuing kind," she said. "The best kind." As they walked toward their daughter, because that's what Zoe was now, officially and in every way that mattered. Victoria realized that sometimes the most beautiful art isn't created on canvas. Sometimes it's crafted from second chances and chosen families, from ordinary moments made extraordinary by love, from the courage to remain open to connection, even after loss. The fireflies danced around them like tiny stars, and for the first time in years, Victoria Greenberg Johnson felt complete. Sometimes the most profound moments arrive disguised as ordinary ones. A child's innocent question, a stranger's kindness, a birthday cake that nobody was supposed to share. This is the story of how 3 lives intersected on a rainy Tuesday in Portland, proving that healing doesn't always come from medicine or therapy, but sometimes from the unexpected grace of human connection. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comment below. I'd love to hear your stories.